Hey guys, this is Peter Hafner, certified financial planner and certified financial fiduciary. And today we're bringing you Dawn Myszka again to talk about different kinds of elder care and legal issues. And Dawn is a partner at PB Elder Law in Cheektowaga, New York, right by the airport. Hi, Dawn. How you doing?
Hi, Pete. Very good. How have you been?
Doing great. Nice to see you again. You have
Good.
a nice summer?
Goes by fast, but beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. All right. And we got a few different questions we want to go over today. The first one is, what legal steps should I take if a parent has Alzheimer's or dementia? You know what? And let's back this up a little bit. If you start to think a parent has Alzheimer's or dementia, because it can be kind of shifting ground. So, in your opinion, how should people handle that? If they start to think that's going on with their parent or another older relative or loved one.
Yeah. So if a parent, a loved one is starting to have cognitive issues or have been recently diagnosed, maybe with the beginning stages of like maybe even Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia, what they should do is they should contact an elder law attorney to meet with the elder law attorney, review their advance directives, their healthcare proxy, their power of attorney document. Hopefully, they have those previous documents. And if they don't, as long as they're in the early stages of the cognitive decline, an elder law attorney, we would be able to, prepare those documents, get those documents in order for them so that when they do decline more, their family doesn't have to worry about managing their assets, paying their bills, making their health care or any other decisions that they may need for the loved one.
Okay, so basically, what they do when they meet with the elder law attorney is they come up with the game plan for the future for taking care of all these things.
Yeah, and I met with a wonderful husband and wife yesterday, and the husband was being very proactive, and he made it clear that he was recently diagnosed with a cognitive issue, and they didn't have any estate planning documents, and he wanted to have everything in place so that, God forbid, as he declined, and it could be rapidly or it could be over the course of a couple of years, that his wife would be taken care of, that she wouldn't have to worry about. But he was very proactive with that.
Yeah, I actually see that quite a bit. It tends to be with men who are used to, the older generation where they took care of all the financial stuff, and it's a big driver. They want to make sure their spouse is going to be okay and things will be taken care of, and they know how to do everything, especially because oftentimes men pass before women do.
Right. But then this is also a good wake up call for the wife. If
Mhm.
she hasn't been involved with paying the bills or the finances or, the investment accounts, this is when she needs to get involved, to become aware of what they have, not necessarily how things work. That's what they have, you for, Peter, as a financial advisor, me as a lawyer for, but they really need to, pay attention and be aware of it. They can't ignore it.
Yeah. Hey, one side question for you. Our broker dealer was acquired by LPL recently. So we're in the process of getting POAs attached to the new LPL accounts for all our clients. And at LPL, they're asking questions that we never had to answer before. And what they want to know about what's the right term for usually the adult child who's acting on behalf of the parent? Are they the agent? Is that the right way to say it?
Yeah, the general term is an agent, but the legal word is really attorney in fact.
Yeah, that's a clunky thing to say.
That's
But
why we say agent.
yeah, okay, I'm going to stick with agent. So the adult child agents in a couple of cases, we're asking them what their occupation is, their employer, and the industry they work in. And I never had to ask these questions before, But in your experience, have you seen that in the past when people are being set up to be the agents for someone else with a power of attorney?
Through another financial
A-
company or
Anywhere ever? I'm curious.
usually when we're doing Medicaid applications and the power of attorney is acting on behalf of their loved one who's in the facility, the skilled facility, and we're doing something with their investments or their life insurance accounts, we have seen those questions come in where the agent does have to fill out that information. Not only the agent for a power of attorney, but also after somebody's passed away, an executor has to fill out, yeah, what's your employment, your a salary and all of that. Yeah, I just had to do that on Monday with a client.
Another question we want to talk about today is what if what if one family member, like one sibling, starts to think that the sibling that's living with mom or mom and dad or dad is maybe taking advantage of this elderly relative? What do you do? Because maybe I get this is like the other one. Well, I think maybe they got Alzheimer's. It's like I think maybe it seems like there's weird stuff going on. What's the right course of action?
I want to say it depends. I mean, the a family member who thinks their parent is being taken advantage of by either a current agent under a power of attorney or another family member, they can make a phone call to Adult Protective Services, contact your local police department. But it's kind of those things where if you have a suspicion, you really should, follow it up with concrete proof.
Yeah.
If you think the power of attorney is stealing money out of your parents' bank account, go to an attorney, go to an elder law attorney. Maybe in that instance, a legal proceeding would be commenced so that we can inquire about what the power of attorney is doing with mom or dad's finances. But then sometimes it's a gray area because what if the parent agrees to what that agent is doing, or they give them the permission to do that?
Right.
So it's like one of those, you got to tread really carefully with all of that.
Yeah, I can see mom or dad saying, well, Susie's doing all this work for me. She's running around all over town, picking up prescriptions, grocery shopping. So yeah, I bought her a new Cadillac. That just makes sense. You know,
Right, right. And trust me, Pete, we've seen those scenarios.
yeah,
We've seen those, and they come into our office either a family member who didn't benefit from receiving that Cadillac, or maybe a neighbor who is concerned with what they're seeing.
yeah,
And it's going to depend on, we have to do our investigation too to figure out what is the best way to proceed. And like I said, we have to, be careful on how we do that. Yeah.
yeah. I'm just shooting from the hip here, but I'm just thinking maybe a good way to start is if you really think this is going on, you got to have like a family audit. You got to have a conversation with this person. And if you think it's bank account money, it's like, hey, we need to look at the books together. And because I'm worried, things seem strange to me. And that,
Right.
yeah. And then if that doesn't go well, then I never heard of Adult Protective Services, but calling Adult Protective Services, getting an attorney involved. Yeah, good ideas.
Yeah, and when I say this, Pete, I mean, too bad we don't know the lotto Powerball numbers ahead of time, because right, the questions you're asking in the scenarios, I swear, these are the things that literally happen every single week with me.
I
And
know.
and I just met with a client this week who, he was power of attorney for his parent. Now, apparently, he's no longer power of attorney. The other child has now been out of mom's presence for whatever reason, and they were concerned about mom's welfare. And I suggested, well, call the police, have them do a welfare check. So they did a welfare check. Mom was fine. She's cognizant and everything. And they reported back to the child, to assure them, well, mom's fine. But again, if there is still something underhanded, the only way to, dig deep is you got to go to court. But there's pros and cons with doing that as well,
Yeah. 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 Well, okay. Now, what if someone has a special needs child who is an adult? How do they go about setting up a special needs trust, and why do they need one?
So if you have a special needs child, whether they're an adult or they're under the age of 18, they're generally going to be receiving government benefits, mainly Medicaid for their health insurance coverage and or supplemental security income, SSI. And both of those programs are what we call means tested. So it's based on their assets and based on income that they have. So if you have a special needs child, you don't want to have them inherit directly when you pass away. So there's a couple of ways to create a special needs trust for a special needs child. You can do that under your last will and testament. If you really want your special needs child to inherit under your estate when you pass away, you create a special needs trust so that their inheritance keeps them entitled to their government benefits, to their Medicaid and to their SSI. They're entitled to use that money on a limited basis, but they're not going to lose their Medicaid or their SSI.
Right.
You can also create a special needs trust for your special needs child while you're alive and deposit a lump sum of money into that trust while you're alive to provide for your special needs child for the rest of their life. Some clients, even though they are told that they can set up this special needs trust either while they're alive or under their last will and testament, some clients are still afraid of that and they completely make no provision for their special needs child under their estate plan, which is okay. I mean, I can certainly understand that. But there are options to make sure that the special needs child can receive an inheritance and not lose their benefits, but everything has to be in place before you pass away.
Really, really important. Thank you. Now, what if we got a situation, we're kind of going back, let's say we got a family, several siblings, and what if they can't agree about the elderly parent's care? Like one thinks they should be in the nursing home, the other one's like, no, mom's fine. Every time I go there, she says she's fine, which I've seen firsthand in different situations. Sometimes parents rally for children when they come over, and then when the other children are over, not the mom or dad can't do anything. So, what advice can you give to adult siblings who are in situations like this?
Yeah, so that's where, we would first look to see, is there a healthcare proxy for the parent? Who's the power of attorney for the parent? What powers does the agent under the power of attorney have? If there's no such healthcare proxy or power of attorney, maybe we would recommend trying to get the family to do a mediation with all family members present as well as the loved one. And if the mediation doesn't work, like a family mediation, and even if there is a healthcare proxy or a power of attorney and the family is still fighting and arguing, you may need to take that to the next step with doing a guardianship and going to court.
Now, Healthcare proxy. There's healthcare proxy, there's advanced directive. Are they the same thing or are
It's
they
the same
different?
thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Now, when I've thought about healthcare proxies in the past, it seems like when I'm hearing them talked about, it's more about how far do you want the doctors to go to keep you alive? That's sort of the way I hear about that. Do you want really aggressive help or do you want to be able to pass away? Well, what you're saying is the person who is named the agent on the advanced directive or healthcare proxy, they've actually got the ability to make the decision about mom or dad's care and put them into assisted living, it sounds like, or a nursing home. Is that
Right. If the parent doesn't have the cognitive ability,
okay?
and there's a need for help, maybe the parent has, fell at home or can't live at home or, needs help more than 24 hours a day or something like that. The healthcare proxy, because eventually that agent is going to have to make the medical decisions for the parent.
Yes.
So that's where we start looking at those documents to see what authority and what powers are available.
All right. Now you said cognitive ability. That's one way. But basically, if the agent on the healthcare proxy makes the argument that mom or dad cognitively isn't able to take care of themselves anymore or physically cannot take care of themselves anymore, what they need to do is they need to get them to a doctor who signs off on that. And that's the fact then. And then they've got the ability, even if other siblings are saying, no, no, that's not right, they now have the legal authority to do what they think is best. That's the way
Right.
it works.
And if the other siblings, other family members still are objecting to that, I hate to say it, they would consult with their own attorney. And more than likely, this would end up in the form of like a guardianship proceeding in the Supreme Court to address who really has the ability to make those decisions, those personal care decisions, those medical decisions, as well as the financial decisions, and whether the parent needs to be placed in assisted living or a skilled facility.
Okay. So the court will look at the doctor's reports and agree that the need is there. They're going to give preference to the people mom or dad made as the agent on the healthcare proxy and the POA. Boy, that's a bad place to go though, because you just lose control once you get in front of the court.
Yeah, exactly. And when you're in that situation, there's no guarantee that the court will allow the person who is named the agent under a healthcare proxy or even as the agent under the power of attorney to be the guardian.
Right. They
Um,
sign someone from outside, possibly.
yeah. Yeah, if there's too much contention with the families, the judge is just going to say, "Okay, I'm going to stop this. I'm going to appoint a neutral third person." But then that puts that neutral third person in a really awkward situation, especially making medical decisions for
Yes.
somebody that they have no relationship with.
Yeah, it's usually an attorney familiar to the court, I think, right?
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah, so you
exactly.
wind up with a stranger making the most important decisions for your most loved ones.
Yeah, but it does happen. Unfortunately, it does
I know it
happen.
does. I've seen it. All right. One more thing I want to kind of walk through with you. I had someone in my office earlier this week, and a client of mine, unfortunately had a stroke, and they're just not, they can't handle their own affairs anymore. So the spouse is largely taking care of them with help from family and friends. Um, and ultimately, what could happen is someday this person could wind up in a memory unit of a nursing home, which of course is incredibly expensive, 12, $15,000 a month, maybe a lot of money. So the client was asking me, gee, how long will my money last if this happens? Um, and more to the point, though, this client has a fair amount of money. What was interesting about their situation is it's almost all, at least what they got with me, it's almost all in IRAs. And they are both of the age where they're taking required minimum distributions. And I believe in New York State, once you are that age, your IRAs are not attachable in the sense that the assets can be taken away from you. Now, what can happen is the required minimum distributions can be assessed by Medicaid. But when you're applying, if you're applying for Medicaid, even though you got $2 million in IRAs, that really doesn't count against you in applying for Medicaid.
So when there's an IRA, the general rule is yes, as long as you're taking the required minimum distributions, your spouse is needing skilled care, the principal balance in your IRA is completely disregarded. It's not looked at.
Disregarded.
Yeah,
That's a good word.
it's not looked at when applying for Medicaid. So as long as it's a traditional IRA, if it's an IRA with an annuity connected to it, there's different rules, and that's where we tell clients, come to us.
Oh my God.
We'll explain those rules, when your loved one's in a nursing home, what to do so that the principal is still protected and you can still name who you want as beneficiaries rather than naming, Medicaid or New York State a beneficiary on those annuities.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So IRAs work the way I said, they're disregarded as far as claiming Medicaid. But if the IRA is invested in an annuity, it gets more complicated, and that may not be the case.
Yeah.
So time to talk about it because it's going to depend. Annuities are complicated. They're very different. Just because you have an annuity and your friend has an annuity, it might be totally different cases. So we got to look at the details of that, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and Pete, there's several different kinds of annuities, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Of course,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, that's really interesting. I didn't understand that. But to go back a little bit, if it's all in Roth IRAs also are disregarded.
Roth IRAs are counted.
Roth IRAs are counted towards Medicare?
What? Oh, Medicaid.
Medicaid?
So if somebody has a Roth IRA, because technically you're not really required to make the required minimum distributions.
Right.
So a lot of times clients will just keep that money in the Roth IRA.
Yeah.
If we then submit a request to do the distributions, okay, we keep our fingers crossed that Medicaid will then only count the distributions and not the balance in the Roth IRA. Technically, the balance in a Roth IRA is available for Medicaid eligibility. Yeah. When clients get into, retirement accounts, with doing Medicaid or even Medicaid planning, we look at all of that, break it down, and then, see what we can do and advise, what the big picture is going to look like.
You say technically it's available. The impression is sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't.
Yeah, if we again, if there's other retirement accounts that we're doing the IRAs, we can, make the argument, well, it's a retirement account. The RMD from one would count as if we were doing the RMD from the total retirement. It gets complicated. Yeah.
Okay. Wow, that's really fascinating. Okay. So if someone has traditional IRAs, and one of the key things too is they have to already be taking RMDs, I believe, correct?
That is correct. If you have not started taking your RMDs, and maybe you can't for because of your
Not
age.
old enough. Yeah.
Yeah. If you can't take your RMDs and your spouse has to apply for Medicaid, Medicaid will look at the balance of your traditional IRA
Yeah.
because you're not taking the RMDs from it. Yeah.
Okay. And when they're looking at it, that's going to be, now you're talking about that asset being spent down to the statutory limit.
Right. But then that's where hopefully you have the proper power of attorney document with the proper authorities, proper authority under that document. So you don't have to necessarily spend down all of your money to qualify for Medicaid then.
I don't understand. I thought in order to qualify for Medicaid, your assets had to be at a certain level. That's not true.
You do have to be at about $32,000 if
Yeah.
you're the spouse in the nursing home.
Okay.
The spouse who's living at home has between $74,800 and $20,000 up to $157,000. Okay. But if you have $500,000 in an IRA that you're not taking the RMDs yet, because again, you can't because of your age,
Right.
doesn't necessarily mean that you have to spend down that $500,000 until you get to your 100,000. The power of attorney document, there is a way where we could take that money instead of having to spend it down to do a gift and that promissory note, that
That,
crisis planning.
okay. You can
Yeah,
do that with IRAs too. I wasn't sure about that.
to get you onto Medicaid and to at least have a good portion of that money kept aside
Yeah.
for whatever emergency you may need.
Got it. And you can do that. You don't have to do that 5 years earlier. You can actually do this now
You well,
of the crisis.
you have to have the power of attorney with those powers in place
Got it.
now, but that crisis planning can really only be done, when you're in the nursing home doing that gift and promissory note. You have to be in the
Oh,
nursing home in order to do that. Yeah.
got it. All right, folks. We're going into the weeds on some stuff here, but if you wind up in this situation, you call Dawn or call some other elder law attorney because there is some kind of voodoo they can do that can really protect a lot of assets. If you're in a situation where someone's going on Medicaid and it's all personal, it depends on a lot of stuff. So it's hard.
Yeah, and what we tell clients is, a lot of times, their loved one goes into a nursing home, and they're always told, "Oh, you got, $500,000. You have to spend that down. You have to spend all of that down. You have to cash in your IRAs. You have to do all of this." And I I I can't tell you how many times when I hear this that is not true. You don't have to spend down your IRAs. You don't have to cash in everything. You need to talk to an elder law attorney. If somebody tells you that when your loved one's in a nursing home, take it with a grain of salt and immediately call an elder law attorney to get the right advice and the right path on what you need to do before you have to spend and before you get rid of everything, which maybe you did not have to do.
You know who has a lot of sway over people who are in these crises for probably the first time in their life, grappling with big decisions, is the social worker at the rehab or the nursing home. And in your, I don't want to say anything bad about people, but I can imagine there's a lot of bad information getting passed on to people when they're in really vulnerable, uncertain places in their life, making big decisions for their parents.
It's bad information, but it's only because they're not lawyers and they
Yeah.
cannot give legal advice.
And they're
So,
very motivated to get people on Medicaid.
right,
The institutions still get paid.
right.
Experience, a lot of these people are you really need to talk to an attorney if a social worker is giving you pressure to keep moving forward to get all the ducks in a row. Talk to an elder law attorney.
Yeah, yeah. And honestly, you don't have to have a $500,000. You have $100,000. Talk to an elder law attorney before closing accounts, liquidating stuff, so then that way you know that you are on the right path.
Okay, let me back up a little bit and then come back at this. I just want to make sure one thing you said is it's really important that the power of attorney that you're the agent under has the right powers in place. Is there any way me as a non-attorney, but someone who's looking at powers of attorney all the time, especially in New York, where I think everything is pretty standardized, is there a section I should be focused on and looking at for my clients so I can say, hey, I see this isn't checked. Maybe you ought to go talk to an attorney.
It's usually the gifting ability, but it's going to depend on the date of the power of attorney.
Okay.
Um, if the power of attorney was signed before 2009, it would only be a one-page document that does not have what I tell my clients, the
Remember when it
superpower.
changed? Yeah.
Yeah, the superpower, the special power that
Like
your agent needs.
you don't need a power attorney, you need a super power.
You need a superpower. And if it was between October of 2009 through June of, and I should know this, June of 2021, there was an addendum to the power of attorney document called a gift rider that explained and authorized those superpowers. After June of 2021, now it's consolidated into one document. So it's really depends on which power of attorney document you're looking at, where that superpower is going to be.
Okay. But I at least can start getting familiar with this by looking for the gifting. And
Yeah, the gifting
aware,
authority. Yeah.
looking, being aware of the years 2009 and what was the other end of it? 2021?
October of 2009 through June of 2021.
Good. So if you've got those superpowers, so you can do the gifting for your parents or wherever you're the agent for, then the elder law attorney is going to have the tools they need to really look at your balance sheet and see how things can be protected so that they're to see what can be excluded from eligibility for Medicaid.
Yes, exactly. And that type of though that gifting power, those superpowers, that what we can do again, that's only unfortunately when somebody is in a nursing home. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the first thing you want to do is make sure you've got the superpowers.
Yeah.
And if you can see, like we were talking before about where you're starting to think someone's got dementia or Alzheimer's, you want to be meeting with the elder law attorney because if you haven't done this advanced planning yet, you want to be ready. So when they go into a memory unit or a nursing home, that everyone's on the same page and ready to act. And what's that called? What's that called? That sort of loan you create that helps protect the assets? That's not
So we do it like it's called a gift and a promissory note.
a gift.
And a promissory note. Yeah, it's all we got all of these plates spinning all at the same time when we're doing this. Yeah.
That sounds like a who's the rock star from New Jersey? Um,
Bruce
that's
Springsteen?
no, not now. The other one. Um,
Oh, Bon Jovi?
Bon Jovi. It sounds like a Bon Jovi song. In a promissory. We'll have to change the words on that and we'll perform it next time. Done. All right. This is really good. This is really interesting. I hope you're all finding this interesting. I think it's pretty interesting.
And it all came full circle, Pete, from
Yeah.
your first question. We had this huge circle, but it all comes down, basically straight to the beginning, having your ducks, your documents all in a row before something happens to you.
All right. Well, we're going to let you go, Dawn, and all you folks who joined us. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Feel free to share this with your friends or family members. And most importantly, thanks a lot for joining us. It was nice to see you all again. Have a great day.
Thanks, Pete.